The transport shuttle kicked up red dust as it landed on Crimson Vale. Daniel Reed grabbed his medical bag and stepped onto the moon's surface for the first time. The air tasted metallic even through the filter mask. Everything here had a rust-colored tint, from the jagged crystal formations to the twisted forest that stretched beyond the station's fence. Redstone Outpost looked small against the hostile landscape. Just 3 connected buildings, a perimeter fence that hummed with electromagnetic energy, and a handful of nervous faces watching his arrival. "You must be the new medic." A tall woman in a security uniform approached him. Her name tag read Chun. "I'm Amy. Sorry about your predecessor." Daniel had read the file during the journey. The previous medic had died 3 months ago. Bloodfang attack. The report used those words like they explained everything. What exactly happened to him? Daniel asked as they walked toward the main building. Amy's expression darkened. He thought he could tranquilize an injured Bloodfang. Got too close. The creature tore through his protective suit in seconds. The main building's airlock cycled him through. Inside, the station felt cramped and lived in. Scratched floors, flickering lights, and the smell of recycled air. A man with gray hair and stern eyes waited in the corridor. "Captain Oren Valles, welcome to the worst posting in the outer reaches." He shook Daniel's hand with a grip that tested bones. "Let me be direct. The last medic ignored protocols and died for it. I need to know you will follow orders." "I follow protocols that make sense," Daniel said carefully. The captain's jaw tightened. "Everything here makes sense when you understand what we're dealing with. Come with me." They walked to the observation deck. Floor-to-ceiling windows showed the red forest beyond the fence. Captain Valles pulled up a holographic display and played a video file. The footage showed a creature emerging from the trees. It moved like a wolf, but stood as tall as a ground vehicle. Armored plates covered its body, overlapping like natural armor. Its jaw held rows of teeth designed for ripping through anything. The creature's eyes reflected the camera light with an eerie intelligence. "Bloodfangs," Captain Valles said. "Apex predators of this moon. They hunt in packs, communicate with complex vocalizations, and can tear through reinforced steel. We've logged 43 attacks on various settlements across Crimson Vale in the past decade. 0 survivors who got within striking distance." The video showed the Bloodfang attacking a fence similar to theirs. Sparks flew as claws raked the barrier. The electromagnetic pulse finally drove it back, but not before it left deep gouges in the metal. "They test our defenses weekly," Amy added. "We increase the pulse strength, they adapt. It's like they're learning." A 4-armed insectoid alien entered the observation deck. Her chitinous body reflected the light in patterns of green and gold. "Dr. Lyra Asen, our xenobiologist," Captain Valles introduced her. "She studies the local fauna. Studies them from a safe distance," Dr. Lyra clarified. Her voice had a clicking quality. "The Bloodfangs are fascinating creatures. Highly intelligent, possibly sentient, but utterly hostile to any species that enters their territory. This station exists only because we maintain the fence and never venture beyond it without heavy weapons." Daniel watched the video loop again. Something about the creature's movements bothered him. Not random or savage. Calculated. Testing. "Why are we here then?" he asked. "If this place is so dangerous, why maintain a station?" "Mineral surveys," Captain Valles said. "The crystals in this region contain rare compounds worth billions. We coordinate geological teams, provide emergency services, and serve as a trading post. But everything depends on staying behind this fence." Dr. Lyra pulled up another video. This one showed a pack of Bloodfangs hunting something in the forest. They moved with coordination, flanking their prey, communicating with low growls and body language. The hunt was efficient and brutal. "Notice how they work together," she said. "Pack hierarchy, tactical planning, even what appears to be teaching behavior with younger members. Yet every attempt at peaceful contact has ended in bloodshed. They see us as invaders, pure and simple." Daniel spent the next hour reviewing protocols. Never approach the fence alone. Never go outside without authorization and armed escort. Never attempt to interact with local predators. The rules were clear and backed by dozens of incident reports. That night, Daniel unpacked in his small quarters. Through his window, he could see the edge of the red forest. Movement caught his eye. A bloodfang emerged from the trees, larger than the ones in the videos. Scars crisscrossed its armored plating. Old wounds that told stories of battle survived. The creature approached the fence slowly, not attacking or testing it, just watching the station. Daniel pulled out his binoculars for a closer look. The scar bloodfang had a massive wound on its left flank. Even from this distance, he could see the injury was infected. Dark fluid matted the fur around it. The creature must be in constant pain, a S if sensing his gaze. The bloodfang turned its head toward Daniel's window. For a moment, their eyes met across the distance. The creature's expression was impossible to read, but something in that stare felt less like hatred and more like assessment. Then it turned and melted back into the forest. Daniel set down the binoculars and thought about his first day. Everyone here lived in fear of the bloodfangs. Understandable fear, backed by evidence and loss. But that injured creature had walked up to observe the station, not attack it. Had stood there despite obvious pain, but he pulled up the medical database on his tablet and began researching infection treatment for unknown alien species. The system flagged his search with a warning about unauthorized medical intervention on protected fauna. Daniel dismissed the warning. Outside his window, the red forest whispered with night sounds. Somewhere in that darkness, the scarred bloodfang was suffering, and despite every protocol, every warning, every sensible reason to ignore it, Daniel could not stop thinking about that infected wound. The moon's twin moons rose over the horizon, casting double shadows across the landscape. In those shadows, shapes moved. The bloodfang pack was hunting. Their howls echoed across the valley, a sound that made everyone in the station lock their doors and check their weapons. Daniel listened to those howls and heard something others might miss. Not just mindless savagery, communication, coordination, intelligence that he wondered what they were saying to each other out there in the dark. 2 weeks on Crimson Vale taught Daniel the rhythm of frontier life. Wake to the sound of fence diagnostics. Check medical supplies. Treat minor injuries from clumsy workers. Watch the forest through his window at night. The scarred bloodfang returned every few days. Always alone, always watching. The infection on its flank was getting worse. Daniel could see it spreading even from a distance. You're staring at that thing again. Amy found him at the observation window during his break. She carried 2 cups of the awful synthetic coffee the station served. Its wound is killing it, Daniel said, accepting the coffee. Another week, maybe 2, and the infection will reach vital organs. It's a bloodfang. They're practically indestructible. Nothing's indestructible. Daniel watched the creature limp slightly as it moved. Infection doesn't care how tough you are. Amy studied him with concern. You're not thinking of doing something stupid, are you? Before Daniel could answer, Captain Valez's voice crackled over the station intercom. All survey team members to the briefing room. We deploy in 30 minutes. The briefing room filled quickly. 6 security personnel, 3 geologists, and Daniel as field medic. Captain Valez stood at the front with a holographic map of the terrain. We need core samples from the crystal formations 2 kilometers northwest. Standard security protocols apply. Stay together, weapons ready, and nobody wanders off. His eyes fixed on Daniel. That especially means our new medic. You're there to patch up people, not study wildlife. The team geared up in the equipment bay. Heavy protective suits, energy weapons, and enough supplies for a 6-hour expedition. Daniel packed his medical kit with extra care. Standard trauma supplies, antibiotics, surgical tools. He added veterinary-grade wound cleaner and broad-spectrum antimicrobials. The airlock cycled them through. Stepping beyond the fence felt like entering another world. The red forest pressed close, and every shadow seemed to hide threats. The security team formed a perimeter while the geologists set up their drilling equipment. Daniel stayed alert, scanning the tree line. Nothing moved in the visible spectrum, but his suit's thermal sensors picked up dozens of heat signatures. Small creatures, scavengers, and something larger circling at a distance. Contact, one of the security officers shouted. Multiple targets incoming from the east. Creatures burst from the underbrush. Smaller than Bloodfangs, but no less dangerous. They looked like scaled wolves with ridged backs covered in razor-sharp spines. Razorbacks, according to the briefing files, the security team opened fire. Energy blasts lit up the forest. The Razorbacks scattered but kept coming, working in coordinated strikes. One got too close and slashed through a geologist's suit. The man went down screaming. Daniel ran to him, dragging him behind the drilling equipment. The suit's automatic sealant had engaged, but the cuts were deep. Daniel worked fast, applying coagulants and pressure bandages while weapons fire continued around him. That a roar shook the forest. Not the high-pitched snarls of the Razorbacks. Something deeper, more powerful. Everything went silent. The Razorbacks froze, then scattered into the underbrush like prey fleeing a greater predator. The security team kept their weapons ready, scanning for the new threat that IT emerged from the ridge above them. The Scar Bloodfang, even larger up close than Daniel had imagined. Its armored plates gleamed in the red sunlight. The infected wound on its flank wept dark fluid. "Nobody move," Captain Valles whispered over the comm channel. "If it attacks, focus fire on the legs." The Bloodfang descended the ridge slowly. Not stalking, not preparing to strike. It walked to a flat area 20 meters from the team and simply stopped. Its legs trembled. The infection was taking its toll. Then the creature's legs gave out. It collapsed onto its side with a sound like falling stones. "It's dying," Dr. Lyra breathed over the comm. "The infection has spread too far." Daniel stood up. His hands moved on instinct, checking his medical supplies. "Reed, stay where you are," Captain Valles ordered. "That's a direct command. It's suffering." Daniel walked toward the Bloodfang. "Reed, stop right now, or I will shoot you myself." Daniel kept walking. 20 meters. 15. 10. The Bloodfang's eyes tracked him. Intelligent eyes filled with pain and something that might have been resignation. He could hear his team shouting at him, begging him to come back, promising him punishment if he survived. He ignored them all. 0.5 meters away. Daniel stopped. The Bloodfang watched him. At this distance, one strike from those claws would cut him in half. One bite would crush his skull like an egg. "I want to help," Daniel said quietly, knowing the creature could not understand his words, but hoping his tone conveyed his intent. The Bloodfang stared at him for what felt like an eternity. Then, moving with obvious pain, it shifted its body, turning to expose the infected wound, sitting down despite its agony. Waiting, Daniel approached slowly, medical kit in hand. Up close, the infection was catastrophic. The wound had festered for weeks, maybe months. Debris and dead tissue filled the gash. The smell was overwhelming even through his suit's filters. "I'm going to help you," Daniel said, opening his kit. "This will hurt." The Bloodfang remained perfectly still as Daniel began working. He cleaned the wound with antiseptic, removing infected tissue with careful precision. The creature flinched but never pulled away, never threatened him, just sat there, allowing a tiny human to cause more pain in the hope of eventual relief. Daniel worked for 20 minutes, cleaning, treating, applying antibiotics directly to the wound. He used dermal regenerators to close the worst of it, knowing the alien biology would have to handle the rest. Behind him, his team watched in shocked silence. "There," Daniel said finally, applying a protective bandage. "It should heal now. Keep it clean if you can." The Bloodfang stood slowly. It towered over Daniel, close enough that he could feel its breath, smell the alien musk of its fur, see his own reflection in its eyes. Then it lowered its massive head, touched its nose to Daniel's outstretched hand for one brief second, and vanished into the forest without a sound. Daniel turned back to his team. Captain Valles looked like he wanted to commit murder. Dr. Lyra's mandibles hung open in shock. Amy just shook her head in disbelief. "You just violated every protocol we have," Captain Valles said coldly. "When we get back to the station, you're confined to quarters pending disciplinary review." "Yes, sir," Daniel said. But as they packed up and headed back to the station, Daniel looked over his shoulder at the forest. Somewhere in those red trees, The scarred Bloodfang was probably licking its wound, maybe resting without pain for the first time in weeks. And despite the coming punishment, Daniel felt no regret. Daniel's quarters felt smaller when he could not leave them. 3 days of confinement while Captain Valles debated his fate. Meals delivered through a slot in the door. No communication devices. Nothing but time to think about what he had done on the third night. The door's lock clicked open. Dr. Lyra slipped inside, her 4 arms carrying data tablets and what passed for excitement on her insectoid features. "What you did was either brilliance or madness," she said without preamble. "I need to know which. Does it matter?" "To science, yes." She activated a tablet, showing graphs and behavioral data. Bloodfangs have been observed for 30 years across 4 colonies. Never, not once, has any creature shown non-aggressive behavior toward another species. You changed that in 20 minutes. Daniel looked at the data. Attack patterns, territory markers, kill statistics. Everything painted Bloodfangs as perfect killing machines. "What if everyone approached them wrong?" he asked. "Explain." "Every colony treated them as threats first. Shot at them, trapped them, tried to drive them off their own territory." Daniel pointed to the attack records. "Look at the dates. Most attacks happened after humans initiated conflict." Dr. Lyra's mandibles clicked thoughtfully. Defensive responses escalated to full aggression. "But that does not explain why the Bloodfang allowed you to treat it. It was dying. Maybe it understood I was trying to help. Or maybe," Dr. Lyra said slowly, "Bloodfangs are far more intelligent than we believed, capable of recognizing intent beyond simple threat assessment." They spent an hour reviewing data before Dr. Lyra left as quietly as she had arrived. Daniel lay awake after, thinking about intelligence and assumptions. Humans had walked into Bloodfang territory and declared a hostile, never considering that the hostility might be mutual. The next morning, Captain Valles entered with Amy. His expression was unreadable. "The station council reviewed your case," he said. "Officially, you violated direct orders and endangered the entire team. Unofficially, you prevented a dying predator from attracting every scavenger in the region to our doorstep. So what happens now? You're restricted from leaving the station without my express permission. One more violation, and I ship you back to Earth." Captain Valles paused. "But you're still our medic. We need you functional." Amy handed him a comm device. "You've got a lot of people talking for what it's worth. Half think you're crazy. The other half think you're onto something." That afternoon, alarms blared through the station. Daniel ran to the observation deck with everyone else. The water purification system's main display flashed red across every screen. "Complete failure," the chief engineer reported. "Primary and backup systems both fried. We've got maybe 4 days of water reserves. What about the emergency supplies?" Captain Valles demanded. "There's a cache 2 kilometers out. Full replacement parts and portable purifiers. But someone has to retrieve it." The room went silent. 2 kilometers into Bloodfang territory. The same distance as the geological survey, but this time they could not wait for perfect conditions. "I'll organize a security team," Amy started. "With respect, Captain, we lost 3 people last year on a supply run half that distance," another officer interrupted. "The Bloodfangs always know when we leave the fence." Daniel spoke up. "Let me go." Every head turned toward him. "Absolutely not," Captain Valles said. "You're already on thin ice." "The scarred Bloodfang appears at our fence every night," Daniel argued. "It remembers what I did. Maybe it would let me pass safely." "That's insane speculation based on a single encounter. It's our best option." Dr. Lyra had entered the observation deck. The Bloodfang could have killed Daniel during treatment. It chose not to. That suggests a level of reciprocal behavior we should explore. Or it was too weak to attack, and we got lucky, Captain Valles countered. The debate continued for hours. Water reserves ticked down. Finally, Captain Valles made his decision. "We sent a full security team. Reed stays here." That night, Daniel could not sleep. Through his window, he saw the scarred Bloodfang at the fence line, watching the station like it had every night since their encounter. The creature's wound appeared to be healing well. His door opened. Amy stood there with an emergency access card. I'm going to regret this, she whispered. There's an auxiliary exit in the lower level. It'll log my credentials, so I'll face punishment too. But you were right during the survey. That creature chose peace. Why help me? Because we're going to run out of water, and a security team will just provoke an attack. Amy pressed the card into his hand. The cache is northwest, near the crystal formations. Take medical supplies. If that Bloodfang shows up, maybe you can bargain. Bargain with a predator. You already did once. Amy smiled grimly. Try not to die. I'd hate to lose 2 medics in 1 year. Daniel gathered supplies. Medical kit, emergency beacon, portable scanner. No weapons. If this worked, weapons would only ruin it. The auxiliary exit was hidden behind maintenance equipment. The card unlocked it with a soft beep. Daniel stepped through into the red forest. Dawn was breaking, painting everything in shades of rust and shadow. The forest was quieter than he expected. Watchful, he walked northwest, following the scanner's coordinates toward the supply cache. Things moved in the underbrush. Small creatures fleeing his presence. Larger shapes tracking him from a distance. But nothing approached. The scarred Bloodfang emerged from behind a crystal formation half a kilometer from the station. Daniel stopped walking. The creature was massive in the morning light, healthy and alert now that the infection was gone. It watched him with those intelligent eyes. I need to get to the supply cache, Daniel said, knowing his words meant nothing, but hoping his tone did. My people need water. The Bloodfang tilted its head. Then it turned and walked deeper into the forest, paused. Look back. Waiting for him to follow, Daniel made a choice. He followed the apex predator into the unknown, trusting that his act of kindness had purchased something more valuable than safety. Understanding, and maybe, just maybe, alliance. The red forest swallowed Daniel whole. Crystal formations jutted from the ground like broken teeth. The scarred Bloodfang moved ahead of him, powerful and silent. It walked with purpose, occasionally glancing back to ensure Daniel followed. They traveled for an hour. Daniel's scanner showed the supply cache ahead, but the Bloodfang was not taking a direct route. It led him around certain areas, through paths that seemed safer. Avoiding something that a low growl echoed through the trees. The Bloodfang stopped, positioning itself between Daniel and the sound. 3 razorbacks emerged from the underbrush, their spined backs raised in aggression. The scarred Bloodfang released a warning rumble. The razorbacks hesitated but did not retreat. They were hungry enough to challenge even an apex predator. Daniel stayed perfectly still. The Bloodfang took a step forward, then another. One razorback lunged. In a blur of motion, the Bloodfang caught it by the throat and threw it against a crystal formation. The crack of impact echoed through the forest. The other 2 razorbacks fled. The Bloodfang turned back to Daniel. A new cut marked its shoulder from the brief fight. Not deep, but bleeding. Again, Daniel said, pulling out his medical kit. You have a talent for getting hurt. The creature sat down, allowing him access to the wound. Daniel cleaned and treated it quickly. The Bloodfang's muscles remained relaxed under his touch. Trusting. Thank you, Daniel said when he finished. For the protection and for trusting me. They continued to the supply cache. The structure was a reinforced box half buried in the ground, covered in dirt and crystal growth. Daniel opened it with his access code and found the contents scattered. Something had tried to break in. Claw marks scored the interior. Most supplies were intact. The water purification parts were damaged but reparable. Daniel loaded everything into his backpack. It was heavy, but manageable that a sound made him freeze. Not razorbacks. Something else. Bigger .6 Bloodfangs emerged from the forest, forming a semicircle around Daniel and the scarred one. They were massive, each one a potential killer. Their eyes fixed on him with predatory focus that Daniel's heart hammered against his ribs. The scarred Bloodfang stood and moved between him and the pack. It released a series of low rumbles and growls. Communication. Explaining or arguing. Daniel could not tell which point one of the pack members, larger than the others except for the scarred one, approached. It sniffed at Daniel, close enough that he could see his reflection in its eyes. Then it sniffed at the scarred one's shoulder, where Daniel had just treated the new wound. The large Bloodfang made a sound, deep and resonant. The others responded in kind. Then, without warning, they formed a protective circle around Daniel. The pack was accepting him. They moved as a unit back toward the station. Daniel walked in the center of the circle, surrounded by apex predators. Any other human would have been paralyzed with terror. Daniel felt strange calm. These creatures could kill him instantly, but they were choosing protection instead. Halfway back, a pack of razorbacks attacked. 8 of them, coordinated and desperate. The Bloodfangs met them with devastating efficiency. It was not a fight. It was a demonstration of why they were apex predators. Within minutes, the threat was eliminated. One Bloodfang sustained a gash across its flank. It approached Daniel cautiously. The scarred one rumbled encouragement. Daniel treated the wound while the entire pack watched. When he finished, the injured Bloodfang touched its nose to his hand, mimicking what the scarred one had done. Understanding. Gratitude. Reciprocation. They reached the station's perimeter by mid-afternoon. Alarms screamed as sensors detected the Bloodfang pack. Daniel could see security teams mobilizing inside. "Stand down," he shouted at the fence. "Do not fire." Captain Vala's voice came through external speakers. "Reed, get away from those creatures. They escorted me safely. They protected me." Daniel held up his heavy backpack. "I have the supplies." The Bloodfangs made this possible. The pack remained at the forest edge. The scarred Bloodfang walked Daniel to the fence, then stopped. It looked at the station, at the humans gathering with weapons, then back at Daniel. Daniel set down his pack and approached the Bloodfang, close enough to touch. The creature lowered its head, and Daniel pressed his forehead against its scarred snout. Feeling the warmth of it, the steady breathing, the trust. "Thank you," he whispered, "for everything." The Bloodfang pulled back, made a sound that might have been farewell, and turned to rejoin its pack. The 7 creatures melted into the red forest, leaving Daniel standing at the fence with supplies that would save the station. The gate opened. Amy rushed out, followed by Captain Valez and Dr. Lyra. "You're insane," Captain Valez said, but his voice carried more wonder than anger. "You just walked through Bloodfang territory with a pack as escort." "They're not mindless killers," Daniel said, exhaustion hitting him suddenly. "They understand cooperation. Protection for protection. They have a code." Dr. Lyra examined his suit's recording equipment. "I captured everything. This will change how we understand them, how the entire galaxy understands them. Right now, I need to change my pants and sleep for 12 hours, Daniel said. Then we can talk about scientific revolutions." They brought him inside. The water purification parts were delivered to engineering immediately. Within hours, the system was being repaired. That night, Daniel stood at his window. The scarred Bloodfang returned to its usual spot at the forest edge. It sat there, watching the station. But now Daniel understood what he was seeing. Not threat assessment. Not planning an attack. A guardian, watching over unexpected allies. Daniel raised one hand. The Bloodfang stood, released one powerful howl, and disappeared into the night. In the briefing room. Captain Valez was updating the station protocols. For the first time in 3 decades, Bloodfangs were not listed as hostile threats. They were listed as potential allies. The change was small, just words in a database. But words had power. And on a hostile moon in the outer reaches, one human had proven that the most powerful weapon was not technology or firepower. It was compassion, offered freely to a suffering creature who remembered kindness. The station divided itself into camps. Half the crew treated Daniel like a hero. The other half avoided him, convinced his actions would bring disaster. Captain Valez remained somewhere in the middle, watching everything with cautious eyes. Dr. Lyra spent 3 days analyzing the recordings. She played them during a mandatory station meeting, showing the Bloodfangs protecting Daniel, accepting his medical treatment, escorting him safely home. "This changes everything we thought we knew," she explained to the gathered crew. Bloodfangs are not simply territorial predators. They demonstrate complex social behavior, reciprocal altruism, and cross-species cooperation. Or Reed got lucky, one engineer argued. Maybe that particular Bloodfang was an anomaly. "I researched every failed colony on Crimson Vale," Dr. Lyra continued. 3 settlements reported Bloodfangs, observing them from a distance without attacking. All 3 colonies had strict non-aggression policies toward local wildlife. The colonies that failed catastrophically all attempted to hunt or capture Bloodfangs first. The revelation sparked heated discussion. Daniel sat quietly, letting the scientist debate while he thought about the scar Bloodfang. It appeared at the fence every night now, sometimes with pack members. They never threatened, just watched, waiting for something. A new voice interrupted the meeting. Trader Braun had arrived with supply shipments. The massive Torvasai merchant entered the briefing room, his reptilian features creasing with amusement. "You humans always overthink things," Braun rumbled, his voice like grinding stones. "In my culture, we call this a blood pact. You save the Alpha's life, the pack owes you protection. Simple. Blood pacts are mythology," Captain Valles said. "Mythology comes from somewhere." Braun settled his bulk into a reinforced chair. "My ancestors lived on a death world. Volcanic. Filled with apex predators that could swallow starships. Know how we survived? We stopped fighting them and started helping them. Removed parasites. Treated wounds. Eventually, they protected our settlements because we proved useful. The Bloodfangs are not pets," Dr. Lyra said sharply. "Never said they were. A blood pact is between equals. You help us, we help you. Break that pact, and the protection becomes extinction." Braun looked directly at Daniel. "What you did, medic, was ancient wisdom. The galaxy forgot it when we got ships and weapons. But Death World creatures remember." The discussion continued late into the night. Daniel excused himself and went to his quarters. Through his window, the scarred Bloodfang sat at the forest edge, a symbol of everything that had changed. Alarms shattered the quiet. Station-wide emergency. Daniel grabbed his medical kit and ran to the command center. "Perimeter breach imminent," a security officer reported. "Massive creature, unknown classification. Bigger than anything in the database." The external cameras showed something that made everyone go silent. A creature that dwarfed the Bloodfangs emerged from the deep forest. It stood 4 meters tall at the shoulder, covered in metallic spines. Its jaws could crush vehicles. Eyes glowed with predatory hunger. Titan Razorbak Doktor Lirabiretit. They were supposed to be extinct. The creature approached the fence with terrifying purpose. Its spines scraped against crystal formations, producing sounds like screaming metal. When it reached the barrier, it did not test the fence. It attacked it directly. Sparks exploded as claws met electromagnetic energy. The fence held, but barely. Warning lights flashed across every console. "Fence integrity at 60%, the engineer reported. "It won't hold more than 2 direct assaults." Captain Valles activated the station's defensive weapons. Automated turrets rose from hidden panels and fired energy bursts. The blast struck the Titan Razorback's metallic hide and dissipated like rain. "Weapons ineffective," security reported. "The armor is too dense." The creature hit the fence again. 50% integrity. One more strike and it would breach. Inside the station, people scrambled to emergency shelters. Children cried. Adults prepared for the worst. Daniel watched the monster and thought about the Bloodfangs. About protection and reciprocation. About blood packs. "Let me out," he said. Everyone stared at him. "Daniel, no," Amy said. "That thing will kill you in seconds. The Bloodfangs protected me before. Maybe they'll do it again. Maybe they'll watch you die," Captain Valles countered. "That's not a Razorback pack. That's an extinction-level threat. We have no other options." The room fell silent. Captain Valles looked at the screens, showing fence integrity dropping by the second. At the Titan Razorback, preparing for another assault. At his crew's terrified faces. "I can't authorize this," he said finally. "Then I'm not asking for authorization." Daniel headed for the airlock. Doctor Lyra followed him. "If you die, your sacrifice must mean something. I'm documenting everything." Amy joined them. "And I'm not letting you go alone. Amy, you'll face court-martial. For the 2nd time this week. I'm building a reputation." They reached the airlock. Captain Valles' voice came through the intercom. Reed, if you survive this, remind me to promote you or shoot you. I haven't decided which. The outer door opened. Daniel stepped into the red dawn. The Titan Razorback turned its massive head toward him. Intelligence burned in its eyes. Ancient, hungry, unstoppable. Daniel walked forward, unarmed and unprotected except for his medical kit. The creature's muscles tensed, preparing to charge. 50 meters separated them. Then 40, 30, the Titan Razorback roared, a sound that shook the ground. It lowered its head and charged directly at Daniel. 20 meters. 15, 10. Daniel closed his eyes, hoping the blood pact was real. That a counter roar split the air. The scarred Bloodfang crashed into the Titan Razorback from the side, hitting it with the force of a meteorite. Both creatures tumbled in a tangle of claws and fury. The forest erupted. The entire Bloodfang pack emerged, 7 strong. They surrounded the Titan Razorback and attacked as one coordinated unit. It was the most brutal thing Daniel had ever witnessed. Apex predators defending their territory. Their pack. Their unexpected ally. The battle raged for 10 minutes. The Titan Razorback fought with desperate strength, but the Bloodfangs were relentless. When it finally fell, 3 Bloodfangs were severely wounded. The scarred one, the large pack leader, a smaller female. Daniel ran toward them without thinking. The scarred Bloodfang lay on its side, breathing hard. Deep gashes crossed its chest where the Titan Razorback's metallic spines had penetrated its armor. The pack leader had a shattered foreleg. The smaller female bled from multiple puncture wounds. Daniel dropped to his knees beside the scarred one. His hands moved automatically, checking vital signs, assessing damage. The wound was catastrophic. Without immediate treatment, the Bloodfang would die. "I need help," Daniel shouted. "Dr. Lyra, Amy, anyone, medical emergency." The station remained frozen in shock. Then Captain Vala's voice came through speakers. "Medical team, deploy immediately. Engineering, bring portable power for surgical equipment. Everyone else, stay alert for more threats." People poured from the station. Dr. Lyra arrived with scanners and began analyzing Bloodfang biology in real time. Amy coordinated the medical team. Engineers set up portable power generators. The station that had feared Bloodfangs for decades was now desperately trying to save them. Daniel worked on the scarred one, while 2 other medics treated the pack leader and female. His hands were steady despite the enormity of what he was doing. Stopping bleeding, closing wounds, administering broad-spectrum antibiotics adapted for alien physiology. The healthy Bloodfangs watched silently. One left and returned carrying plants in its mouth. Dark purple leaves that smelled astringent. It laid them beside Daniel. "What are these?" he asked the doctor. Lyra scanned them quickly. "Natural antibiotics. The Bloodfangs use them for wound treatment. They're showing you their medicine." Daniel crushed the leaves and applied them to the wounds. The Bloodfang's breathing steadied. The combination of human and Bloodfang medicine was working. For 3 hours, the medical team worked. The station's crew watched through cameras and windows. History was being written in blood and bandages on the red soil of Crimson Vale. Finally, Daniel sat back. The scarred Bloodfang's wounds were stabilized. It would survive. The pack leader's leg was set and splinted with improvised materials. The female was bandaged and resting comfortably. "They need shelter," Dr. Lyra said. "Somewhere safe to recover." Captain Valles stood at the open gate. "Bring them inside. Station cargo bay is large enough." "Sir, regulations. I'm making new regulations." Captain Valles looked at the scene before him. Humans and Bloodfangs working together. Get them comfortable. Food and water. Whatever they need. The Bloodfangs refused. The pack leader stood shakily and made a low sound. The healthy pack members moved to support their injured. They were leaving. "Wait," Daniel said. "You need more treatment. At least let us." The scarred Bloodfang touched its nose to Daniel's chest. A gesture of farewell and gratitude. Then the pack moved as one unit back toward the forest. Slowly, painfully, but together, Daniel watched them go. Dr. Lyra placed one of her 4 hands on his shoulder. "You did everything possible," she said. "Well, they survived. Now, Yes, because of you, because of us. She gestured to the medical team. We created something unprecedented today. Captain Valez approached carrying water and supplies. Leave these at the forest edge. If they come back, they'll find them. Over the next days, the station transformed. The fence remained active, but protocols changed. Instead of treating Bloodfangs as threats, they were monitored as neighbors. The cargo bay was converted to emergency medical facilities for large creatures. Staff received training in xenobiology and cross-species first aid. The Bloodfang pack returned 5 days later. The injured members were healing well. They left a kill near the fence, fresh meat from a razorback hunt. A gift, payment for services rendered. Daniel established a routine. Each evening, he left medical supplies at the forest edge. Water, food supplements, basic medications. The Bloodfangs took what they needed and sometimes left their own offerings. Plants with medicinal properties. Information about approaching storms through specific howl patterns. Warning growls when dangerous predators moved near the station. Word spread through the outer reaches. Other stations requested information. Scientists arrived to study the relationship. Diplomatic corps sent observers. The human medic who befriended Bloodfangs became famous across 3 sectors. But Daniel paid little attention to fame. He cared about the scarred Bloodfang that appeared at the forest edge each sunset. About the pack that now treated the station as extended territory, protecting it from threats. About the bridge built between 2 species that everyone said was impossible. 3 months after the Titan Razorback attack, Captain Valez received new orders. Redstone Outpost was designated as the official Human Bloodfang Relations Center. Funding increased. Staff expanded. The small frontier station became something larger. A symbol that cooperation could exist even between the most unlikely allies. One evening, Daniel stood at the observation deck. Amy joined him with 2 cups of the terrible station coffee. You changed everything, she said. The whole frontier is reconsidering how they interact with local predators. I just helped an injured creature. You did more than that. You proved that compassion works even in the harshest environments. Amy smiled. There are reports from 4 other stations now. Humans treating injured predators, building relationships, creating peace where there was only violence. The HFY crowd will love that. Humanity, finding friends in the most unlikely places. We're Deathworlders too, Amy said. Maybe that's why we understand creatures like the Bloodfangs. We recognize the same survival instincts, the same capacity for loyalty and protection. The scarred Bloodfang appeared at the forest edge. It sat in its usual spot, silhouette against the setting sun. The wound Daniel first treated was now just another scar. Another story written on its armor. Daniel raised his hand. The Bloodfang stood, released one long howl that echoed across the valley, then disappeared into the red forest. Will you stay? Amy asked. Command offered you a position at headquarters. Better pay, less danger. This is where I belong, Daniel said simply. The pack needs a medic they trust, and I need to be where I can make a difference. That night, Daniel updated his personal log. He wrote about the journey from fearful medic to trusted ally, about learning that intelligence existed in forms humans barely understood, about discovering that the greatest strength his species brought to the galaxy was not technology or weapons, but the ability to look at a dangerous predator and see a potential friend that in the forest. The Bloodfang pack gathered around the scarred leader. They communicated through sounds humans were just beginning to understand. Stories of the small human who helped when others would have fled, of trust given and returned, of a bond that transcended species. The scarred Bloodfang looked toward the distant station lights, where human medic probably stood at his window, watching the forest. 2 beings from different worlds, connected by a simple act of compassion. Tomorrow, Daniel would venture into the forest again, not with fear, but with purpose. The pack would be waiting, not as threats, but as partners in survival, as equals who had chosen cooperation over conflict. And somewhere in the vast darkness of space, on a hostile moon where death lurked in every shadow, one human had proven the greatest truth of his species. That compassion was not weakness. That understanding was not surrender. That even the most dangerous creature could become an ally if you were brave enough to extend your hand in friendship. The Bloodfang's howl echoed one final time across Crimson Vale. Not a warning, not a threat, but a promise. The Blood Pact was sealed, and on a forgotten frontier station, two species had learned that survival meant more than strength. It meant community, protection, and the courage to see past fear to the possibilities beyond.